district in the area or something that they focus on. That's a good thing. How many years someone's looking at? Someone focuses in on some area.
You're right. Great. Yeah. Okay. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission 2019 Statewide Cultural District Designation Advisory Review Panel. I am Karen Ellerbrook, Emeritus Commissioner from Indianapolis. Today is October 3, and we are in room 401 of the Indiana State Library in Indianapolis. We welcome applicants who may be part of our audience today and would like to remind you that there is to be no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. Please be sure that all cell phones are silenced during the meeting today. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state.
I'm Sarah Ferguson. I'm the Director of Marketing for Visit Hendricks County.
I'm Richard Young. I'm an independent consultant with the Kentucky Peer Advisory Network in Lexington, Kentucky.
Amy Worsham. I'm the Arts Coordinator for the City of Goshen and the Mayor's Arts Council.
I'm Bill Barnes with the Community Foundation of Madison and Jefferson County in Madison, Indiana.
I'm Wendy Pfeffer, founder of Marion Design Co. and lead placemaking designer, as well as faculty at Indianapolis University.
Hi, I'm Mary Shaw with the Office of Community Rural Affairs. I'm a project manager in charge of the Indiana Main Street program.
Anna Tragesser, IAC staff. Please start by IAC staff.
Okay.
Now we'll begin the panel review. This is how the process will work. I will announce the application we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will open the discussion to the full panel to offer their perspectives. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, we will ask that panelist to leave during the application's evaluation. However, there are no conflicts of interest today. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. These scores are saved automatically. Are there any questions? Let's begin. We'll start with the application from the City of Fishers. The first reader is Richard.
Hello. So I just want to start. Basically, would just like to kind of go through the comments that I have in each of the individual sections of the application process. So starting with the community profile, overall, I think it's pretty clear that this district is seeing an influx of new development and activity. It's obviously very impressive that they were sort of rated as one of the best places to live by Money Magazine. I enjoyed hearing about the history of the Nickel Plate District. I thought that was a really strong part of the application, talking about the narrative, and especially as that transitions into the Tracks to Trails program that they were indicating. I would have liked to see, I think the application could have been a little bit stronger if they had talked a little bit more about how that rail line has influenced the culture of the city and how it's changed the demographics of the city, and how that's reflected in the vision for the cultural district. I also would have liked to see a little bit more information about the diversity of peoples and traditions inside the community. I noticed that about 10% of the population was foreign-born. I'd like to see how those different cultures are playing into the shaping of the district. And specifically, they brought up a strong Sikh community and what role do they play in the visioning of the district. There also seems to be a lot of professional services in the district, more so professional services than there are artists and cultural assets, and that's not necessarily a problem. They're not mutually exclusive, but I think that that's just one thing that I noticed in it. In terms of cultural development, there was clearly a significant amount of cultural assets inside the district. I think the application could have been stronger if they had talked a little bit more about the educational programming. It came up a couple times, sort of the Big Brains program and a couple other things. But I think that was definitely the strongest opportunity for growth in the application, would be talking about the educational aspects of the cultural assets inside the district. In terms of community development, it's clear that they have very excellent partnerships with public entities and private organizations, specifically with the government. It's really, really encouraging to see the sort of municipal infrastructure getting behind this project. And it's just very impressive to me. I think the application could have been stronger if there had been more of an indication of citizen leadership. I saw a lot of leadership coming from the sort of civic infrastructure and not as much coming from individuals and sort of everyday residents. And I'm not sure if that's the case. I think that just would have made the application a little bit stronger. A couple times in the application, they indicated some affordable housing issues. I'd like to see how those are being addressed and what the future plan for that is as the cultural district grows. And I would like to see how people that are directly impacted by affordable housing issues are helping lead efforts related to affordable housing in the arts district. I think that would have made the application stronger. I think it's really good to see that they're in the process of planning a more intentional way to engage community. I think more information about that and why they view that as an important part of the planning for this district would have been helpful and informative too. In terms of economic development, obviously the application indicated that there wasn't a specific economic development plan for the district itself, and that's in tandem with the sort of Fisher's Arts and Cultural Commission that's being developed. I think that those are two things that both on the management side and on the economic development side will make the application stronger in the future, or will sort of make will strengthen the district overall. There are a number of policies that they reference, form-based code, a couple other things that they talked about specific ways that the municipal infrastructure is investing in the Nickel Plate district and ways that they have developed policies to help shape the area. And I think that's very, very strong. I really, really like seeing that a lot, that there are very specific, clear policies. But I think a stronger, more centralized plan for economic development that is being led by residents and being led by business owners would be really helpful. And another part of the economic development that struck me was the Track to Trail project. I think that's going to clearly be transformational for the community, and I think that that's a very exciting thing coming down the pike. And I'm glad that was included, even if it's not obviously completed. In terms of management, there doesn't seem to be in the application one centralized plan that governs the long-range planning of the district. There is sort of a piecemeal approach, which while that can be effective, I think the creation of this Arts and Cultural Commission is going to be more effective. And I think that in the long run, that's going to put the cultural district, Nickel Plate district, in a strong position. But currently, that's not in place, and I would really like to have seen that in place before they're trying to become a cultural district. But I'm glad that it's going to be in place moving forward. I overall, I think that this application is very strong. There's currently a lot of effort being put into this. It's very clear that they're being very intentional about the way that they design their community. And I think that's really, really great. Overall, I, again, would like to see a little bit more information about how citizens and people that are directly impacted are leading that process. It seems to be very, from the application, it seems to be very top-down led, and I would like to see how it's a little bit more bottom-up led, and how sort of everyday folks are helping to shape the vision for the district. Yeah, so those are my comments. I guess the last thing I would say is that it does seem that they are putting the infrastructure in place to make sure that this is successful long term, and that's really, I really like to see that. And I think they're at a very interesting point where they could ensure that that infrastructure does adequately address what everyday folks want to see in their communities.
Thank you, Richard. The second reader, Mary.
I really appreciate reading this application. I want to talk a little bit about the district size. So the defined boundaries of the Fisher District is rather large, and I would have liked to have seen more discussion on how this district boundaries were defined. No explanation was given in this section. And also, especially for the area south of South Street, which is south of their main downtown area, why this was included. I didn't see too many cultural assets or programming for that area, so I'd like to have seen what their discussion and what the plans are for the area south of the main downtown area. And also the photos, a lot of the photos were just of that main, on 116th Street area. I'd like to have seen more photos for in the overall district. And then in cultural development, more year-round programming maybe for the district would have been beneficial for this application. I know it's a huge area and there are a lot of assets in Fishers, especially the library. Maybe a little more focus on the programming from the library would have helped on their educational programming. And then how are the schools involved in actually determining program for children in Fishers? Would have been helpful. And I really love the idea of the living and working spaces for artists that Fishers is planning. And then Fishers, they actually have a unique challenge here in Indiana where they're growing exponentially. As it said in the application, it went from 7,000 people in 1990 to like 91,000 in 2017. I would have liked to have seen more information how the community is specifically welcoming and engaging all of these newcomers in the area, and what type of programming is geared toward the newcomers of Fishers, because it seems like they're getting at least thousands of people every year. So how are they engaging all of these newcomers? And I thought they had a great public-private partnership. And then on the economic development, Hamilton County Tourism, they have a really large area that they have to cover. They have Fishers, Carmel, all the other communities in Hamilton County. I was wondering, is Fishers, or maybe they're thinking about having a separate CDB for Fishers only that can really help with their marketing for Fishers specific? And then what role did the artists play in creating the marketing strategy for the district? And then on the resolution that was passed, I guess I would have liked to have seen the ordinance with the signatures of the city council people on there. It was just the ordinance that there wasn't any signatures on there. And I thought they had I really love the community art plan that they have in here. It's probably, it's a very strong art plan for the community. And will these concepts actually be incorporated in the NPD plan that they're designing? And then I really like that the city of Fishers has been a big contributor for their budget, but I'd like to see what the plans would be for other sponsorships to help pay for some of the cultural programming and the festivals and stuff that they're doing in the Nickel Plate District. So more detail on projected income revenue streams would have been beneficial. But overall, it's a strong application.
I can provide some clarification on
Okay.
the resolution.
Yeah.
They did upload the wrong document, so, I just followed up with a phone call to make sure that it conferred, and
Okay.
it was passed on August 20th, and so I didn't make any changes to the applications that came.
Okay, thank you, Mary, and thanks for the update, too. Now we will have open discussion for the full panel for any additional or new comments. Does anybody have anything to add to what has been said? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. Okay, the next applicant name is City of Greensburg and Artistry District. Sarah Ferguson is our first reader.
I was impressed by how much they've received community support and feedback on this project, not just from going through their talking with the citizens, but also the amount of recommendation letters that they had come through on this was pretty impressive. The community seems to be doing a great job at fundraising to help create a better quality of life for the residents and visitors. I know creating spaces for communities to gather just in general across the United States is a huge undertaking right now, and they're making it a top priority. You can see with the amount of residents that are traveling to the Honda facility and then leaving, that it's important for them to build up the amount of citizens, and if they're creating a place where people want to visit, they'll be trying to create a place where people want to actually live. It's received designation on several other districts, so they've done a lot to move that process forward. They've been following and working through their strategic plan and clearly have the support needed from their community and town. As I keep saying that, you can definitely tell that the community is very involved in this. And that arts has been ingrained within this community. They have a very good diverse mix of businesses downtown. I think over 50% of the district assets being a mix of history and arts is an impressive number, no matter how many that number is with the 50%. And they have a good mix of different art mediums within the business. They have a lot of different, a good mix of leaders overseeing it. Sometimes you see very art heavy or business heavy, and I think when you get everybody in the room to work together, that it makes a big difference in making projects go forward. And they have a strategic placement plan that's attainable goals and metrics to evaluate their success. And I think if you can create that roadmap for everybody to follow, that will also help move things forward. And they also have a defined target market, which does not always happen. So bringing outside talent in is also a bigger draw for visitation. So having that will bring in more visitation than that's going forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Our second reader is Amy.
Hi, yeah, I agree with many of the things that Sarah Ferguson pointed out. I thought this was a very strong application. I enjoyed getting up to date with all the things that were happening inside of the city of Greensburg. I was a little confused at first with the artistry name, but it felt, the more I read on, the more I began to understand that really felt community inspired, and it really felt like it felt like a good fit for their programming. In their community development, I felt that it was very informative and would have been stronger with more information on how arts and culture programming and development considers the need of the underserved populations. I didn't get a strong sense of all the different ways that was being handled within the community. And it was just very apparent that there are a lot of stakeholders in this community that are supportive of being a cultural designation, and they support arts and culture.
Thank you, Amy. Are there comments from other panelists? Wendy, please update your scores online.
Please jump in if you have other comments that haven't been said yet. We want a really full discussion. Not on this application. Following.
Oh, I do have a comment. I was just wondering, are there plans in place to make State Road 46? I saw that that was part of the cultural district, as they're going along State Road 46 till you get to the school area. Is there any plans in place to make that more accessible?
Okay. The third applicant name is City of Jeffersonville Public Art Commission, Noco Arts and Cultural District. Wendy, you're our first reader.
Sure. I enjoyed reading the application for Jeffersonville, and I felt like there was a very strong identifier in the arts that they were highlighting, especially in the public art. I saw that not just in the quantity of public art that was shown throughout the community on the map, which I felt like their map was a really strong identifier for their boundary as well as the art that's shown throughout. Focus definitely was on the public art, and I appreciated the honesty they stated in that they don't necessarily have a art gallery there. So, you know, reinforcing, bringing more interior art or focusing on the fine arts in that way. Also recognizing that art is beyond just the visual and bringing in theater and music and other parts of the arts, I think would really benefit them. I think their activities such as I have to look at the name of the Sugar Skull Shake Shake Festival, which is really unique, and other kind of diverse activities they have were really a highlight, as well as just the way that they're embracing the diversity of the culture itself. I appreciate the fact that they are a small community surrounded by a large city, and so they're embracing just their own identifier as an art culture. I felt like their master plan was diverse, you know, and dispersed quite a bit, but it kind of all got brought together within the context of the public art future. So I felt like it was a strong, you know, long-term master plan, and they've accomplished a lot in the last 6 years, which is commendable, and it feels, you know, very artistic in the things that they're identifying from the community, and I feel like they have a strong plan for the future. Let's see what else is right here. I also appreciated the fact they're utilizing art to bring out of the blighted, bring themselves out of the blighted areas. So also I noticed that they're using a lot of community along with government and nonprofits. So it seemed pretty diverse as far as the stakeholders who are coming to the table, and how they clearly identified commissioners for the public art future. So it seems strong as far as what's happening now, and for what they have planned for the future.
Thank you, Wendy. Richard is our second reader.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed reading this application. Spent a lot of time in Louisville, so it's just right across the river. The overall, I would agree with a lot of Wendy's comments. I think that the thing that gives me the most pause with this application is that I feel like that there needs to be a greater sense of the long-term impact of creating a cultural district here. It seems like there's a lot of revitalization happening, but given the district's proximity to downtown Louisville, I would worry about what happens when increased development dollars come. Is this something that are there measures in place? I mean, there is a tax increment financing district, which obviously will attract a lot of investment. There's a lot of investment happening in downtown Louisville right now as well. So I just, I wish that there was a little bit more in place for what happens when investment does come and how to manage that investment in a way that's that's resident-led and community-led. I think that kind of carried through a couple different parts of the application for me as well. They talked a lot about, in the sort of community profile section, a lot about the history of the community and the sort of adjacent communities for it. I think that a little bit more information about the residents that live in and around the district and how they're participating in this would be helpful. There was some of that, but I think having a little bit more would have made the application stronger. I think it does demonstrate a really significant amount of leadership opportunities for artists in the cultural district planning, which I think is really great. But again, I would like to see artists working in tandem with residents. And that may be happening. It just wasn't as clear to me in the application as it could have been. I think in terms of economic development, again, there's a really strong case for economic development that's happening within the district. And there's an enormous amount of economic incentives happening. I found out of all the applications, this had the most sort of economic incentives driving reinvestment in the community. I think that's really great. I would like to see more artists involved in that process, and as well, where are the citizen and resident voices that are helping guide that. I also think that kind of goes along with the management plan for the district. I think that having a strong management plan for the district and having an evaluation plan for the management plan would be really, really helpful. And I think that that's even more important given the proximity to a major national urban center that's seeing a significant amount of investment, not just from across the state, but international investment happening. And given that it's right across the river, I think preserving the culture and the history of the community and making sure that it's a place that residents can be is really, really important. And I would just really like to see that moving forward. But it's very clear that there's the community is seeing investment, and that art is a significant part of that. I think that is really, really important. But those are sort of my comments. Overall, I thought it was a strong application from the cultural perspective, but I do want to see in the application more community engagement, community leadership, and a plan to tackle what happens when economic investment does come, and can you maintain that and navigate through that in a way that is thoughtful and intentional.
Thank you, Richard. Now we will open discussion to the full panel for any additional or new comments.
I saw that a lot of the live performances are outside, and much of the programming is happening on a very sort of structured basis. And this kind of goes into what the citizen-led side of it, or private entities. But with the restaurants and bars growing, I think they went from 5 to 15, very quickly. I think it's an opportunity to have a little more unstructured, where you've got some cultural programming, some music, poetry readings, or something as people are coming that you can capture people during the week, or again, with so many things outside, it just felt like a lot of it was very structured and less just kind of organic and happening. Businesses thinking that it might be a great idea to bring in some local musicians. Just thought there was an opportunity there.
Thank you, Bill. Other comments?
I think I would also add, for the marketing piece, the graphic visuals are very cluttered. So if you're emphasizing the public art, it would be nice to really notice the public art. But it was so cluttered on the poster that I couldn't really see the art itself. To simplify the visual.
I would agree with that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. Okay, the applicant name that is next is City of Terre Haute. project titled Terre Haute Arts and Cultural District. Amy, you're our first reader.
I thought there was a very strong introduction to the overall application. I got a really good sense of the community through the applicant's writing, and I really appreciated the focus on the local creative economy and preservation of historic buildings in the application. The information given regarding the additional historic museums and galleries that have taken residence in the Arts Corridor has made it pretty clear that there's some great things happening within the community. I also appreciated, I got a sense that there's been a strong but slow growth of cultural development. It's been happening over the course of a number of years, not been overnight. And their marketing plan shows, I thought that it showed a strong promotional communications locally, though I believe that their application could have been much stronger with more regional and statewide marketing plans. And I also got a sense that I could have gotten a better sense of artist participation within the creation and implementation of the Economic and Tourism Development Plan. I didn't get a really good, clear idea of maybe artist involvement or how many or how that was taking place inside of Terre Haute. And I also felt that their evaluation could be improved with a better definition on their goals and objectives, their measurables. But overall, I felt it was a very strong application.
Thank you, Amy. Bill is our second reader.
Right. Just give me a second. So, regarding the district, I know the district expansion is going to include the river, but there was a reference to turn to the river, and that, when I see those sorts of phrases, I think it's a part of a program or an effort or initiative, and I didn't see that. I never saw that defined or expounded upon, so that would have been helpful. Great educational opportunities with artists. Trying to remember not duplicating some of the things that were said here. Excuse me. As regarding private investment, I didn't see a lot of it beyond Vectren. I know Vectren's a big player, but I think it would have strengthened the application to mention some other investments and funders as a part of that. The other nonprofit organizations are involved, but I don't just define public as city and then everyone else as private. I include those public and nonprofit organizations as public. So I think more private interaction would have been helpful in the application. I thought the edit funds going to the district. Sorry, never mind. I'm sorry. That's another comment. Exactly.
I'm going to also clarify for you really quick too. I understand there might be more information you're looking for. Turn to the River in their application is there's an NEA Artstown project in its third phase that will reconnect downtown Terre Haute with the Wabash River through public art and design. I understand there might be more information you're looking for there, but just want to clarify that information in the application.
Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. Further comments from the panel?
I do want to add about, as I understand it, that their cultural district, they expanded it to include the riverfront. But what wasn't actually talked about was the major highway that you have to cross to get to the riverfront. I mean, that's a visual and a physical barrier. So what is the plans in place to kind of alleviate those barriers to get people to actually go from, you know, their downtown to the river, to the access to the river. Also, there wasn't any cultural programming or assets identified in that riverfront area. Just wondering if there was anything there. And then also, street names would have been helpful for me on the boundary map as we're discussing.
I have a couple comments. I think that the involvement of ISU in the evaluation and the measurement sort of evaluation aspect of it is really, really strong. I really like seeing that partnership, and I understand that all communities might not have a resource like that there, but I think that that is a really, really strong thing that I would like to have seen more of, like more partnerships with universities, specifically as it relates to evaluation of these districts. I think would be really, really helpful. And also the budget was great. It was really nice seeing that that formal of a budget. My only concern about the budget is let's see if I can find it in here. It's like pay for staff salary and fringe benefits for year one is $10,000, and year two is goes from 10 to 20 to 21. And I understand that they're not spending 100% of their time on it, but I think having someone that is focusing, if you're going to be, investing $500,000 over 3 years, I think that trying to having a full-time person managing it would be really helpful, and not someone that's half-time, especially for managing $500,000. And I understand that management of that kind of money is distributed over other things as well, but I think that it would be very helpful. And then my last thing is, can we say something broadly about other applications, all applications?
Keep it focused on this application for now, and then I'd love to hear more
Okay.
later about all the applications.
In this application, maybe others. In this application, it would be really great when people are including, when they included streetscape shots, including images of events is helpful, but not necessarily informative of what the district looks like every day. And so I would have liked this application to have some indication of what it looks like every day when there's not a million people jammed in there listening to blues, which is great. I'm glad that they're doing that, but just a little bit more everyday life would be helpful.
I think also this community would benefit from leveraging their focus on children. The programming is, geared toward children. They have a children's museum, which is really unique for a small community like this. So promoting themselves as a family-friendly community would really benefit them for their marketing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
I actually have one more comment, just to follow up with, and this is such a minor thing, maybe, but I really appreciated the vibrancy, the vibrant pictures that they put in with their marketing or their just their streetscape photos. Just because it really, I got a sense of how many people they're impacting in the community. So they can fill the streets out. That's awesome to see. So I really enjoyed seeing that. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah. They're both good.
But I see what you're saying.
Thank you. Okay, if you would finalize your scores and update the online comments.
You're doing an excellent job. Thank you. Great comments. We're moving along at a nice pace as well.
Yes. Okay, the next applicant name is City of Valparaiso. Valparaiso Creative District is the project title, and Mary is our first reader.
I really appreciate reading about Valparaiso. Get there too often, so it's kind of interesting to read about a community I'm not really well versed in. First, I'm going to talk about the defined district boundaries. As I understand from the application, they've applied for this grant before, and the feedback was that they needed to relook at their defined boundaries. So they added a trail and they said it's similar to the Monon Trail that we have in Indianapolis. I guess I'd like to would have seen more information about how safe it is to walk along Campbell Avenue as their defined trail, how far it is from the real cultural district along Indiana Avenue to the point I think was a shopping area. And then also a plan of what is actually going to draw people to use that trail and not walk on other streets. I did notice on their map that there were some other trails that were identified, especially along the street called Lafayette. And was that considered, did they consider that to be their cultural trail or not, since it was already a defined trail that the city uses? And then also, since Indiana Avenue, all throughout the application, they said Indiana Avenue was their creative core of the district. I would have liked to have seen some photographs of that streetscape. And then cultural development. Really like how Valparaiso University and the city of Valparaiso has worked very closely together to in their cultural district. And I saw that, you know, VU is very close to the downtown, and that's where their high concentration of cultural assets program is. My question is the rest of the district mostly residential, and why did they include the residential area? If that, from the map, it looks like it's a lot of residential area, and so why have they included the residential area? And then also on the cultural map, identification of what each of those disciplines were would have been helpful. They just kind of gave an overall kind of summary of what that asset was, but maybe a little more clarification on what those disciplines were. And then what actually were the red dots that they had in there. I wasn't really sure what the red dots signified on the map. And then also, I know inclusion of Valparaiso University is key to the success of their cultural district. And then maybe some information of how VU ensures that their programming is open to residents and visitors, and how they actually put out that marketing to that a lot of their programming is open to residents and visitors. And community development. They talked about the Valpo Next visioning that was done to kind of spark the interest in having this cultural district, and that was done in 2015. Maybe some information on updated, have they done any more visioning since 2015, or is it still based on that original visioning from 2015? And I really like that the Creative Council has a strong representation of artists. A lot of times you see it from top down, but they did include a lot of different disciplines as well on their Creative Council. And I saw that businesses and merchants, they're very fortunate that they only have like 3% vacancy rate in their downtown, which is really good for Indiana communities. And then some of those businesses and merchants that aren't art focused, how are they supporting the efforts of the district? And then they talked about the Hilltop neighborhood as part of the the diversity of the district. So clarification, is anyone from that Hilltop neighborhood part of the council or been part of the whole planning process for the cultural district? And then also the cultural trail that they want to do along Campbell Avenue, more clarification of whether or not that's accessible with people with disabilities. And then I would have liked to see more discussion on how the district is going to work with the Valpo Conventions and Visitors Bureau. And has there already been any marketing done? You know, is the district thinking about doing logo? Are they going to do their own, distinct branding? And then also how the district's going to work with BU alumni organizations. I know a lot of, alumnus come back to their universities for reunions and other stuff. So maybe information, more planning on how they're going to incorporate maybe the BU alumni organizations. And with that as well, maybe some information how the district's going to work with BU and their admissions. I know a lot of college communities work hand in hand with university admissions to conduct tours, marketing events for prospective and incoming students. Maybe some information on how the cultural district is going to work with BU admissions to, kind of engage those new incoming students. And then also Indiana Avenue, as I said, was the creative core of the district. So what specific plans are there that's going to highlight that area? And same with the cultural trail, I think I said, the future plans that is going to highlight that trail that's different from, you know, any other trail in Valparaiso. And I thought they had really great goals and objectives and a great start in their evaluation metric for the plan. That was really good. However, no dates are associated, so it'd be kind of nice to see a timeline. And I think that's all I have for this, but one very good application.
Thank you, Mary. Sarah is our second reader.
I enjoyed reading this application as well. I had the same thoughts on the boundary map. It shows, I saw the pictures of the public art. I think they have the public art there, but when you look at the boundary map, there is nothing along the extended really laid out. I would have loved to see that where they sit, where that is, because when I first saw it and realized that it was extended, it made more sense. But then I'm like, okay, where are these pieces of that? But I know they have it because they talk about it within the organization. They have a good mix of cultural activities and locations to help actually support the event. They're clearly focused on building additional cultural attractions within their community. They're doing a good job of leveraging their assets within their educational space and other current cultural assets. They're starting kind of with that low-hanging fruit, their current assets, and building on these to make it much more attainable. They did a good job at engaging the residents and business owners, and have a strong plan in place to keep the project top of mind and moving forward because they clearly have buy-in from the town. One thing I would say, I think it's great that they have a lot of artists and different mediums on the committee, but I also think that they should bring in some business and corporate-centric people as well to have that well-rounded mix. I also think that they should continue to lean on their tourism agency for support on marketing and as a think tank, because that is someone that's there to help lift them up, and it's a free consultant basically to help them with that project. And I agree that their plan is very well thought out and attainable.
Thank you, Sarah. Other discussion, comments about this application?
I feel like I'm a one-trick pony over here, but I think a little bit more information about how they're engaging residents, and specifically from marginalized communities would be really, really helpful. But yes, how are everyday residents helping lead this process?
And I also thought that their introduction would have been more strong with a more clearly defined focus statement of what their identity was that they had. They were kind of, I felt they were, there was a lot there, and it was really, there's a lot of ambition. It was overall, it was a fantastic application. I just felt like their statement of identity could have been more focused.
Thank you. Others? Okay, please finalize your scores, update your online comments. Okay, would anyone like a break now? It's a little bit ahead of 10:30, but.
I'm shocked that you guys are really busy. It's great. It's very efficient.
Okay, we will move along then to our last one. City of Wabash is the applicant name. The project title is Wabash Cultural District. Our first reader is Bill Barnes.
Thank you. I enjoyed reading this application. This is a community with a lot going on in a fairly short amount of time. Starting with the community profile and the district identity, the district size, I found it interesting that about more than a third of the population of Wabash resides within the cultural district, but the cultural district is not, huge in size. I like that the limestone cut kind of served as a gateway into the district, and the rails to river phrase was really, I think, cool. as far as uniqueness go, I didn't know that this was the first electrically lighted city in the world. That certainly gives it some uniqueness. And then the story of MODOK. I mean, you throw the electricity with an elephant running amok. And I like that they're owning that that accident and what they do with it. There's a great deal of programming in the district, and investment from the private sector is very impressive. I think it shows up later in the application as well, but the Eagles Theater is mentioned, and I think that demonstrates, private investment. But in the application, I'd like more information on where the $15 million came from. That's a lot of money to raise in a short amount of time, but I never saw this is how it all broke down. And I think that would have made a stronger statement, although it's very impressive they were able to do that. They use the term "do it downtown," and I didn't see that in any kind of marketing material, so I'm not sure if that's something that they've used in the past and put it into this application. Another thing that came up is sometimes in applications, when you cite 4 distinct areas or focus points, then you expound on them, and they mention 4 filaments, which is cool. It's tying back to the uniqueness in the history, art, history, innovation, and cultural experiences. And I kind of felt like because you have a community that went through the stellar designation, they got that. Then they were, I think, a semifinalist in the America's Best Community Competition, which we're very familiar with in Madison. We were finalists. And then they got another small business thing. So I think when I read this, I think there's some inclusion of other things in there, and it felt in some cases like it was a patchwork of some different applications and not as focused. And that, with those 4 filaments, kind of made me think that. As far as cultural development, public art is mentioned, and they certainly have cultural assets, but public art's mentioned, but on their asset map, I was surprised that there were I didn't see any public art or anything referenced as far as an asset. And I think it's how you interpret. I see that as a cultural asset, any sort of public art, but I did see them cite that in the map. As far as cultural programming, I think that there is plenty of it, and I only see that going up a great deal with the Eagle. Is it the Eagle or Eagle Theater? I wrote down Eagle here, but I see that as being a great addition with an amazing Honeywell center there. A host of organizations are engaged in the programming, including artists, and collaborating, and participation is wonderful, and there's lots of education in the district. And again, I think they're fortunate to have the Honeywell Center right there. Community development, strong relationships among groups, and that is evident when you see the different designations. You can't get all those without people really working together and planning together. And there were lots of examples of that. I think that when they listed all the organizations, it would have been easier. They referenced the 4 main drivers: economic development, Main Street, tourism, and the city. But then they were it felt a little all over the board when it laid those out, including service clubs. And I would have liked to see that a little tighter to make it easier to read. But I'm impressed. It's amazing all the people that are at the table. Again, the Honeywell Center is a huge partner, and it really gives this community a unique asset that you have something like this in a town of 10,000 people. Regarding the underserved populations in programming, there were several things listed, lots of stuff, but it just most of it was around free, which is there's more than underserved community or populations than simply offering things for free. However, the new park for children of all abilities is a wonderful thing. I think they talking about that being one of the best in the state or maybe the country, but it's nice that they're focused on that. And you know, that's a result of some great planning on their part. On private and public and private partnerships, there are lots of examples. There's revitalization efforts, there's investment, and a very impressive entrepreneurship program that's coming that because the schools are universities and schools are high schools involved, I think I love that they're pulling in the schools and a lot of different players. I'm very positive. Around economic development and tourism, there's evidence that, you know, that those plans are intertwined with economic development plan, but as far as artists are included in a lot of things that go on, but there's not a specific mention of them being included in creating and implementing the plans, which I think it's, you know, mentioned that this section that demonstrating artists are involved in that. As far as economic development goes, I thought that in a smaller town, having 6% of commercial buildings vacant is a pretty low number. I'm very familiar with the community size, but I live in one. And I do think we have a typo. I don't think that 51 million visitors visited the district last year. I think that was probably a dollar sign, but in the application, they mentioned 51 million visitors, which, wow, that would be a lot. So I think that was a typo, and that can happen. But obviously, having the correct number in there would have strengthened that. As far as the management planning of the district, I like having a lot of different people at the table because I think that aids in sustainability. And when it comes to planning and goals, I think it's sort of in the culture of this group of people now to seek these things and win them. So I think that they're in a real groove, and I certainly commend them for that. Regarding letters of support, there were actually 2 of them that were worded exactly the same, and I think that you have a stronger representation of support when you use exactly the same wording for 2 of them, because I have an affinity naturally to community foundations, and they do mention the community foundation. Would have been nice to see a letter of support from the community foundation. In addition, the Honeywell Foundation did, but I would have liked to have seen that. And then on the budget, it really seems small. It seems like there's so much planning going on that they can only see what's right here in front of them right now. And I think they should open up to kind of what if things. And just kind of a final comment around that is that it's easy to have so many of these different plans that kind of overlap. You know, you have to do a lot of planning for the Stella communities, and they've certainly seen some great things come from that. But then the ABC community thing throws in there, and I think they've done a great job with all this, but I think they need to take a step back and look at a district plan that includes a budget a little more deeply than they are. It just didn't feel like they were looking at as deeply as they could have. But anyway, it was a great, it was interesting reading the applications and to see the successes that they're experiencing in a small town.
Thank you, Bill. Wendy, second reader.
Yeah, I would just add a couple things. The Honeywell Center and Eagle Theater are, you know, really interesting venues that offer, you know, formalized entertainment. And the focus of the community seems to really be strong in the music and the theater aspect. So it'd be fun to see some more less formal venues, like even street music or, you know, theatrical things that happen impromptu. So I think they really could leverage in that small community, you know, just some of those things could really activate the streets themselves, which I think would be a lot of fun. It is impressive what they've accomplished in a short amount of time, and I think they're a good example of government, private sectors, and nonprofits working all together. So I was really impressed with that.
Thank you. Other comments?
I appreciated the wording they had under the photos and all of their pieces to help better explain what that was.
I would have appreciated a little bit more robust evaluation plan. There's sort of three-prong thing here. Was I felt one of the weaker parts of the application. I'd just like to see, how does the cultural district impact people's quality of life? How does it impact community pride and identity? I would have just liked to see a little bit more robust evaluation beyond like how many buildings are rented out. That I just would like to see that.
Okay. Others? Thank you. Please update your scores, finalize them, and your online comments. This concludes our meeting, and thank you so much for all of your time and your effort. I know many of you have full lives with your jobs and communities and families, and we really appreciate your time and your expertise. We had wonderful comments that were just very spot on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. So our public meeting's now over, so thanks for coming. We'll see you again soon, hopefully. So we're going to stay, the panelists are going to just continue to meet for a few more minutes here. So thanks.
You can sign in, go ahead and sign in, and Anna will be happy to share the comments looking forward to wish to see the panelist comments for notes under you. Thank you.
Okay. Wow, way to go. So efficient. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You guys, let's take a few minutes to like walk around, use the restroom if you want, and then come back in here. I want to hear some of your thoughts on this stuff, if you don't mind. So come back in here at, let's say 10:40.
What do you hear about? What do you hear about? Let's see what's going to happen.
Yes, I have, yeah.